And we continue our coverage of the Allied attacks on Muammar Gaddafi's regime in Libya. And for more on that, we are joined once again by former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Mr. Speaker, Time Magazine. Administration knows no-fly zone may help al-Qaeda. An aide is quoted as saying, it's a huge gamble. The administration knows that al-Qaeda, which has active cells in Libya, will try to exploit the power vacuum that exists. Hillary's own State Department recognizes the Libyan rebels have a al-Qaeda affiliate. In other words, the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group is considered an al-Qaeda affiliate. Rolling Stone, U.S. bombs helping jihadists, question marks. Andy McCarthy, NRO, Sky News, AP, the U.K. Telegraph. Is there a chance they didn't know or that they didn't think about who we may ultimately be helping in this?
Well, I think it's very likely that they didn't know and didn't think through who they were helping. I think that the lack of sophisticated planning, the lack of professionalism, we really miss General Jones as the National Security Advisor because he brought a level of pure professionalism to the White House that is now, I think, totally gone in national security matters. And the fact is that you really need a much larger strategic view than we have right now. And I think that's probably a topic for a different day. But whether you're talking about Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Yemen, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, we need a much deeper and much more serious view than we've had. And I'm in the process of asking the Congress, both the House and the Senate, to really organize a unique working group to look at 10 years after 9/11 and try to assess whether, in fact, we are in worse shape, in deeper trouble, with more enemies than we had 10 years ago, because I'm afraid that's the case.
Let me talk to you about and get your thoughts on what we call mission creep here, because, again, we were not, Gaddafi has to go. All weekend long we heard, no, we're not going after Gaddafi. Now this has evolved into a Washington Examiner report that says, Mr. Speaker, that Obama spoke to the Prime Minister, we will install democracy in Libya. He finally notified Congress 3 days later. And Dennis Kucinich is introducing a bill to defund it, and Ralph Nader wants him impeached. So did he make a mistake by not seeking Congress's authorization, and do you view that as a violation of the War Powers Act?
Well, no, the War Powers Act technically gives him 45 days, but it's a violation of common sense. Here's the problem I think they ran into. I don't think they knew what they were doing, so I don't think they were in a position to advise the Congress and seek counsel. In the years when I was the Republican whip under President George H.W. Bush, and then the first 2 years of the Clinton administration, and in the years I was Speaker, I went through lots and lots of briefings with the executive branch, both with the Republican president and with the Democratic president, looking at Somalia, looking at the Balkans, looking at Iraq. And I think it's very important for any president to recognize you need to have the congressional leadership in the room. You need to listen to them. You need to give them honest briefings. You need to have your senior team go up and brief them. But remember, all the evidence we have right now is that the Secretary of Defense was opposed to doing this. The Secretary of State was in favor of doing it. So how do you send them up to a meeting? I think this has been so badly organized and so badly planned that they have now burned a lot of bridges in Congress, and I think that they can't, with a straight face, claim to have seriously consulted the Congress, and that's a huge mistake. Presidents have to have some kind of support from the Congress if they're going to be able to sustain a national security or foreign policy.
Well, Fox News is reporting late tonight, just as we're coming on the air, that the command will likely transition to French or British control by this time next week, and would be based in Naples, Italy. And so, in other words, it seems like the president reluctantly went in with a conflicting message, and it looking to hightail it out as quick as he can. I don't know what's worse.
But what does that mean? Does that mean we're still going to supply tankers so their aircraft can reach Libya? I don't know what it means. Does it mean we're going to provide AWACS aircraft overhead in order to watch the missiles?
I don't suck up to Obama. He won't give me an interview. I wish I knew.
Well, I'm not sure he knows what it means. That's my point is, it's very hard for a president and his senior team, if they don't know what they're planning to do, to share that information with either the news media or the Congress. And sometimes it's not because they're stalling you. they don't really know themselves right now. And I suspect you would find that there's chaos on the planning side right now in the military operations.
Let me ask you this, because I know you're not going to give me an answer if you're running, but you do have this website, Newt Explore 2012. So, and you said you're going to make a decision probably within weeks. So my question is this. Do these events in Libya, do the events in Japan, the president brackets Rio, golfing, distraction at a time of economic crisis, does this inspire you more to run? Does this increase your resolve or have no effect at all?
Well, I think that the lack of leadership, the lack of consistency, the lack of professionalism, combined with real confusion, things like relying on the international community instead of the United States Congress, all those things make it seem to me more important to have somebody who believes in American exceptionalism, somebody who believes in the Constitution, and somebody who understands the realities of foreign and national security issues in the White House. And so from that standpoint, I think the obligation as a citizen to seriously consider it gets higher when you look at the current damage being done by this administration on so many different fronts.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, serious times, and we need strong leadership. There's no doubt about it. And as Sarah Palin said, November 2012 can't come soon enough. Mr. Speaker, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
And coming up, Stuart Varney and Dana Perino analyze the political response here at home to the president's actions overseas. But first, what is the real reason we are in Libya? A look at Team Obama's conflicting messages. You've got to see this, that, and much more coming up next. Mixed messages, and that's all we're getting right now from the Democrats and the Obama administration when it comes to explaining America's real mission in Libya. Now, Massachusetts Congressman Ed Markey actually claims we are there because of oil.
I think both Japan and the nuclear technology and Libya and this dependence that we have upon imported oil have both once again highlighted the need for the United States to have a renewable energy agenda going forward.
Now, meanwhile, Attorney General Eric Holder has suggested that our purpose is ousting Gaddafi. Let's look at this.
Gaddafi's presence, continued presence in Libya is something that has got to end, given the fact that he's lost all legitimacy with his people. And the fact that he is there in an unstable way, in an unstable part of the world, I think has a negative impact on his neighbors, and given that region of the world has a negative impact on countries outside the region.
All right, so what is it, and does our president even know what the real mission is? Joining me now with reaction, political commentator Imogen Lloyd-Webber, and you can follow her on Twitter at @LloydWebber.
That's me.
That's you, okay. And from the Wall Street Journal, the editorial board, he is the writer, by the way, of one of my favorite columns, Best of the Web, at opinionjournal.com. James Tarano is back with us. Now, here we are, the president, on multiple occasions, he actually goes out there and said, oh, Gaddafi needs to go. It's not acceptable for Gaddafi to remain in power. But yet, over the weekend, all we heard from the administration was, no, we're not targeting Gaddafi. And now they're talking about regime change. Does it trouble you that they can't seem to make up their own mind what the mission is here?
Complete confusion. I think I'm probably here to be here for UK Main Street, almost. And I just want to say, great job that the armed forces are doing.
I agree.
Shame that our politicians are not doing a great job. Complete mixed messages going on in Britain as well. We had the Ministry of Defence coming out and saying, oh, absolutely, we're going after Gaddafi, and then they weren't. Then we had 6 hours debate in Parliament yesterday. They couldn't even make a decision. It hasn't even gone to Congress here. It's all really quite extraordinary. Somebody somewhere has to make their mind up.
I got to give Cameron and I got to give Sarkozy more credit than I normally would, because I think they have led more than this president, and they've been more clear. The conflicting messages between the defense secretary, the secretary of state, and our own president, now the attorney general, they're all contradicting each other almost on a daily basis, James.
Well, the oddest thing is the Attorney General is making pronouncements about foreign policy strategy. I mean, before we comment on what Eric Holder had to say, I think we should wait and hear what the Interior Secretary has to say. You know, where does that come from? But I don't think you give the French and the British enough credit when you say they're leading more than Obama. I mean, that just means more than nothing. They're actually leading. They took the lead here. They were the ones who pushed for this resolution at the UN, brought the U.S. around. Apparently, Hillary Clinton and these other two ladies in the administration brought the president around. But
this is a problem for me as an American. The center of gravity in terms of world leadership has shifted to Europe. I mean, with no insult to Sarkozy and the French, I just find it amazing that the president, and Fox News broke this news tonight, we're ceding all moral authority because he can't make up his mind.
Well, fundamentally, I don't think it should always be up to you. It's not your job to be the world's police. I mean, you've got enough problems back at home. I mean, you've got that huge deficit to deal with and so forth.
Thanks to him.
So fundamentally, it's great that Britain and France on some levels are stepping up. But are they really? Came out today that we have no exit strategy. The Armed Forces Minister in the UK said we had no exit strategy. Rule 101 after Iraq, always have an exit strategy. What is going on, Sean?
You know, you're raising a question. What is our purpose? If this is, every time there's a humanitarian crisis, as President Obama was saying, we're going to go in here, that's a mistake. Now, here's a problem that I see emerging, and I referred to Time Magazine and Rolling Stone Magazine and the AP in Cairo and Sky News. All these news sources are saying something. Who are the rebels we're helping? Now, our own Steve Harrigan talked about this earlier. Now, watch this and watch what they say. These are the rebels America, France, and Britain are helping.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Allahu Akbar? Is that who we're helping? Are we helping radical Islamists?
Well, Allahu Akbar just means God is great. It's not a particularly radical expression.
It's the call to jihad that is used every time there's a terrorist attack. Allahu Akbar.
Well, okay, but I don't think there's enough evidence there to call these guys radical Islamists. I just think I think that's just inflammatory.
Let me give you the evidence. Time Magazine. The Obama administration knows the no-fly zone may help al-Qaeda. Quote, aides quoted, it's a huge gamble. The administration knows that al-Qaeda, which has active cells in Libya, will try to exploit the power vacuum. Hillary's own State Department says the Libyan faction is an al-Qaeda affiliate. Rolling Stone asked the question, U.S. bombs helping jihadists? Andy McCarthy over at NRO. Sky News, the UK Telegraph, AP Cairo. That's everyone saying who these guys are. Are we paving the way for an Islamic State?
I don't know about that, but fundamentally what I do not understand, the Arab League. Apparently they spend £50 billion a year, which is equivalent to $80 billion a year on their military. Now, why are we going in? Why don't the Arab League, who is Libya is their neighbour, why aren't they going in to attack? Saudi planes, they're perfectly capable of doing it. Egyptian planes as well. The Libyan military, we're talking about 200 planes. They're pretty clapped out, so I hear. And fundamentally, those pilots only had 90 hours flying time a year. I don't understand why the Arab League isn't helping out here.
Because I'm going to tell you why. Because they know that these rebels have radical ties, and there is a fear of taking on radical elements should they come to power. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I think Imogen's onto a good point, which after our last appearance, I didn't even think she'd come back. But that's funny. But in all seriousness here, why doesn't Kuwait pay us for our liberation of Kuwait? Why doesn't the Iraq pay us and pay the military families that lost loved ones or had people severely injured? Why do we always bear the cost, the burden, financial, moral burden, and we never get any payback? They become hostile to us in the end. Why?
Well, this is an argument, in a way, for what Obama is doing, for not leading, for not letting the world take us for granted. And the fact that the British and the French have stepped up here perhaps is a benefit of Obama's rather languid approach to foreign policy. I'm not making a case for that approach, but I'm saying it may actually have an upside.
All right, guys, good to see you. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And coming up tonight, critics were quick to condemn President Bush's handling of Afghanistan and Iraq. But when it comes to Libya, how does President Obama, well, how does he compare? Stuart Varney, Dana Perino, they're going to crunch the numbers and much more coming up straight ahead.